ceasefire in place, and with the U.S. enforcing a naval blockade of Iranian ports, this morning Navy Secretary John Phelan is out, effective immediately. A Pentagon spokesman adding, "We wish him well in his future endeavors."
It's an honor to sit before you as the nominee for Secretary of the Navy.
Before taking the job just 13 months ago, Phelan was a Florida businessman and a major donor to President Trump's campaigns. He had never served in the military. This past December, he appeared with the president at Mar-a-Lago to announce a new class of battleships bearing Trump's name.
John Phelan is one of the most successful businessmen in our country. Been a tremendous success.
Overnight, NBC News learned tensions between Phelan and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth had been mounting, according to multiple sources familiar with the relationship. The approach Phelan was taking when it came to shipbuilding appears to have been the main reason for the firing, multiple sources say. A senior administration official telling NBC News President Trump and Secretary Hegseth agreed new leadership at the Navy is needed. Replacing him as acting head of the Navy will be Undersecretary Hung Cao, a combat veteran who ran unsuccessful campaigns for the House and Senate in Virginia. It's the latest shakeup at the Pentagon, coming just weeks after Hegseth forced out the Army's top uniformed officer and 2 other Army generals.
This creates a real chilling effect in our military, and it's downright dangerous to be doing this in the middle of a war.
3 people familiar with the matter say that Phelan did not know he was being fired until he saw a social media post from the Pentagon spokesman announcing his departure. But a senior administration official says Phelan was notified ahead of time. We reached out to him for comment, and his representatives referred us to the Pentagon. Savannah.
Gabe Gutierrez at the White House. Thank you.
Hello, Bobby Jones here from MeidasTouch and Valor Media Networks. The United States is suffering from a leadership crisis, the likes I don't think the country has ever seen before. Now, I know that's a term that Donald Trump loves to use, but in this case, it's actually pretty accurate. And I'm not just talking about leadership with the president himself, but no, specifically, I'm talking about leadership that he handpicked to be around him. Now, there have been differences between his first term and second term as far as who he's picked cabinet-wise and in other various vital government positions. The difference is his first tour, he really did try to get the best that could work with him. And because of that, all of them checked his worst impulses. This time, he's saying he hired the best people, but by best, he doesn't mean competency. He means loyalty. So I just want to go through and pretty much summarize the amount of change in vital leadership positions that Trump has had and what has happened based on those choices. So first, let's start here. Going into April of this year, we're looking at a 32% overall change of high-level team positions that are critical for the president to do his job. Now, understand, on average, by this point in your administration as a president, around 10% is turned over. So we're looking at 3 times as much as what is usually there. On top of that, we're seeing 35% of Trump's team turn over entirely in his first tour. So 35% over 4 years in his first tour, 32% in just a year and a half, going on 2 years. 20% of the actual cabinet has turned over since they came into office in January of last year, led by the big 3, Kristi Noem, Pam Bondi, and now Lori Chavez DeRimmer. That is the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, the Attorney General of the United States, and the Labor Secretary. These are 3 critical positions that help deal with the United States internally, domestically. Homeland Security has been an absolute shit show because of what Noem did. From FEMA to immigration and how it played out as far as violations of civil liberties, etc. Then you look at Pam Bondi, the #1 law enforcement officer in America, not only covered up the Epstein charges and trials, but most importantly, going after political enemies of the president when she is supposed to be over a completely independent entity of the federal government. And now with DeRemer, the labor secretary, being kicked out for various personal scandals, you're seeing three vital positions to keep the United States working domestically completely upheaved. And mind you, these are just the ones that have been fired or were forced to resign. Notice that they are all women, because the good old boys, Hegseth, Waltz, Rubio, we can go all day. They have messed up royally too, but they're allowed to stay. Then when you get outside of cabinet positions, you look at critical national security positions like Joe Kent. Joe Kent is no one's friend on the left. Trust me on that. Me and him probably disagree on a lot of things, but there are two things you cannot question about the man: his service to his country in uniform and his dedication to keeping America safe from threats abroad. Well, he walks away from the Trump administration because he was 100% against the Iran conflict. And now it turns out everything that he predicted was not only right, but there's no way out. On top of that, you've had various positions within the National Security Council that have been purged. What I mean by purged is just kicked out, fired. And the thing that blows your mind about it, these are happening because Laura Loomer, the social media extreme right, crazy psycho lady that has access to the president, has suggested these people be fired. Now, I don't know about you, but Laura Loomer has zero credibility on who should take these jobs because she has no idea what competency looks like in those spheres. And if that's not enough, something that's been criminally underreported, the IRS commissioner, the Internal Revenue Service commissioner, has changed hands 6 times in 2 years. 6 times. People being fired, people being temporarily put in position and then being forced to leave, etc. So right now, the Secretary of Treasury, Scott Bessent, is the person that is actually the acting head of the IRS until they can find somebody that is competent enough and really crazy enough to work for President Trump. All that matters is loyalty. Expertise is not wanted. So when you look at the head of the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, Susan Menarez, she was fired because she did not want to do the Make America Healthy Again initiative, which required vaccines being eliminated from mandatory regimens for people. Or you can look at Carla Hayden, who was the head of the Library of Congress, the head librarian. But because she was, born Black, they said basically her appointment was woke, even though she was the first African-American woman in the history of that library to ever hold the position. Her existence means that she was anti-Trump because she was born Black. At least that's how they kind of explained it. You look at the Surgeon General position, you look at the NASA administrator position, all of these various positions that were removed because of something that either was seen as common sense or common policy before, now seen as something that no one wants to actually have happen. But all of this really kicked off at the beginning of this second term when they gutted the Inspector General's office. The ultimate watchdog for the federal government was gutted by 75%. So you have tons of people who were subject matter experts who knew how to look for these things, not allowed to do their job, so chaos could run supreme. And all we're seeing are various reports to the point where the media can't keep up with corruption here or something illegal there or some back payments here or conflicts of interest there. It was by design to bring chaos. And so that's all fine and dandy if the only people who were affected by it were them and not all the Americans that they're supposed to be taking care of. But most importantly, all of this is now spilled into the international sphere, which is why NATO is on life support, which is why the United States and Israel are in a conflict with Iran where no one can see a way out, which is why trade has been completely jacked up with the whole tariff thing. And now the Supreme Court of the United States says, hey, Trump, you have to pay all that money back. All of this is because of the removal of guardrails led by a lack of competent leadership. So all of this is happening solely because President Trump learned his lesson from the first term. It's not about competency. It's about loyalty. As long as you do as I say, and you do it to the best of your ability, where I am never the person in trouble, then you're good. And by the way, you have a longer leash if you're a guy that happens to be white than a woman. And how is this playing out? The American people have higher costs of living. They don't know how this fuel thing is going to work. Health-wise, things are going down the tube. Corruption running around in government. We had a military member bet $33,000 on the Venezuelan operation and made $400,000 in return. I mean, leadership matters, and corruption is now starting to go rampant. And not only are Americans paying the price, but now the world is. What are we supposed to take from this? Well, leadership matters, integrity matters, but most importantly, if you do not have people willing to do their jobs and execute oversight when and where necessary, I'm looking at you, Congress, then you get what you get. And right now, you cannot find a majority of people anywhere on this planet that thinks that the mess that has been created by this crisis of leadership can be fixed with the same leadership.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.